Oh,
Dave.
Man. Yes.
Hey,
yes,
sorry to
yes.
scare you.
Sorry.
Wake up.
Yeah.
Listen,
Oh, wow.
I had to wake you because I love those threads.
Thanks. Yeah.
You're looking, I would say high end. That's how I would describe you.
I was so excited about wearing these clothes that I slept in them, as you can see.
I don't think that's good for the
Can
clothes.
I tell you why I like them so much?
Please.
This cashmere sweater and stretched wool dress pants. It's hard to say, but they feel so good to wear. Are from Quince.
I knew it.
But together, they're under. Take a wild guess how much they're.
I would pay $2,500,000.
They're under $200.
Shut
you
up.
You are wasting your money, John.
Dave, how does Quince do it? How do they keep their prices 50 to 80% lower than similar brands?
John, I'm going to tell you actually because I know this. They partner directly with top factories and cut out the cost of the middleman.
Get that middleman out of here.
Get
and
the heck out
Quince
of here.
only works with factories that use safe, ethical, and responsible manufacturing practices and premium fabrics and finishes for that luxury feel.
Oh, John, I have sweatpants, Henleys, cardigans, all from Quince, and they're all a perfect fit.
Listen, indulge in affordable luxury. Go to quince.com/Dadville for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. You heard me right. 365-day returns.
That's QUINCE.com/Dadville to get free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/Dadville.
Dadville.
Hi, I'm Dave Barnes.
And I'm John McLaughlin.
And welcome to Dadville.
Dadville is a podcast where we talk about life, love, and the pursuit of awesome dadding.
It's funny thoughts and deep talks.
So please, enjoy your time here in Dadville and enjoy this episode with
Bree Burks. Are we going?
It's professional.
Count us down, Dave.
Yep, here we go. 3.
5.
Nope. 5, 4.
6.
Nope, you're going the wrong way.
Okay.
Gotta go down. 4,
3, 2, 1. Wait, no, you don't say the one.
Talent.
It's
talent is the one.
Now.
5, 4, 3, 2. Talent. Okay. Folks.
Here we are.
Bree had to sit through all of that. And that's our gift to you, Bree.
Thank you so much.
Now, all the listeners right now are like, I hope it's Bree Burks.
Yes.
He said Bree. Is it Bree Larson or is it Bree Burks?
Said maybe nobody.
Larson. It's Bree Burks.
Bree Burks.
Author. Bree Burks. I'm already getting ahead of myself.
John, just slow down.
I'm just excited.
So Bree is on here, one, because we love her. She's just a stalwart in our Nashville friend community, she and her hubby, who's a large man.
Who is a Dadville alum.
He is
himself.
a Dadville. Oh, my gosh, that's right.
He was on the... Gosh, that was probably
Buddy was
3-4 years ago.
But this was like pre-long hair, Buddy. This was like...
Yeah. Well, it was post-long hair Buddy because he was long hair Buddy in his younger years. Then he was business buddy. Then he went crazy long hair buddy.
Business buddy.
Again.
Yeah, so some of y'all will remember that he was on our Man Cave episode many moons ago. This is his better half that we have with us today. Yeah. Bree, I'm going to read. This is called your brag sheet. This is like, found out about you. Wow. That was a random
interesting pull there.
I know. Thank you. But it's the background. So let me say this first. The main reason that we're on here today, which is really exciting, is you've got a book out. You got a children's book out. It is out.
Yes,
it's out in the world.
It is out. It was released. It's released.
Living and Thriving. It's called Delight in Your Hue. That's what we're going to talk about. But I want to go back a little bit. We're just going to give a little bit of background. The hero's journey. This is your life. Here we go. Bree Burks has held various roles, including a bedside ICU nurse, research coordinator, team manager, and senior director of a large central clinical trials office while working across 3 leading academic medical centers. John, is any of this registering so far for you?
I've never done 3 at a time. Great. 1 or 2, that's kind of my sweet spot when it comes to like large medical centers. But Bree can do 3.
Would you just let me keep going?
Sorry.
She has been responsible for over 1,000 trials spanning all translational stages across 38 unique clinical departments. I have to practice reading.
You don't know what any of that means.
None of it.
Everything you just read.
None of it. I got really cold and started sweating. She has developed and implemented many technical solutions throughout her career and joined Veeva Systems in 2019, where she serves as the VP of Strategy for Site Solutions. In her current role, she is bringing consistency and standardization to the global clinical clinical trial technology infrastructure on behalf of hospitals and research sites in order to speed the delivery of medical breakthroughs to patients. She is an all-around advocate. We know that about you, Bree. She's a mom, a nurse, a tech enthusiast, and now a new children's book author. All of her work focuses on making the world a more just and equitable place. Boom!
You did it.
Can I quickly, like, for everyone who heard all that impressive stuff, we're impressed and we're confused. So can we... If I can take a stab at summing this up... Feels like a lot of my dates
in college, if we're being honest.
If I can take a stab at summing up what your day job is, you, along with your company, Veeva Systems, the medical system is very fractured.
Yes.
You're trying to give power to the patients.
Yes.
So that we can own our own medical history, have all the knowledge. And so all these different, like the hospitals, the clinical trials, the whatever, they're all speaking to each other. Dave, I'm doing pretty well. Why are you laughing?
You were killing it because you were killing it until you said whatever. I was literally about to be like,
you're like,
just
wait,
nailed
wait,
it.
What is whatever? Hang on. Don't just say two things and then whatever, like there's a third thing.
I feel like I've never seen you guys trip up like this. It's
Listen,
really entertaining, actually.
We're in a dojo we do not know the martial art for.
Anyway, would you say that's kind of it? You're trying to standardize, simplify, streamline.
Yes, that's now you're getting it.
Medical records and all that kind of stuff.
Yes. Yeah. And my focus is specifically clinical trials, which is where all of the healthcare discoveries come from. And so you're right, like that fragmentation of all of the systems that are in use and the processes. Like a great example of that is what we experienced with COVID, where it was like we knew COVID was everywhere, but we couldn't understand in real time what was going on. Mm-hmm. And that is because we couldn't tap into the data in real time because of all of the nuance and the fragmentation.
And then look, this is where you come in like a bridge over troubled water.
Seems, and this is not what we're talking about today, so this is just an aside, but it seems insane.
I'm really hoping not, because I've got two words I can use, and then you're just going to hear a lot of...
it is
just the fact that, like, Hospital A... tell me if there is maybe a better example of this, but, like, I go to the doctor and I get some checkup, or I have some procedure done or whatever, and then I move to California to pursue my acting career, which, of course, is on the horizon always. And... then I have to go get another procedure done because I love getting procedures done. And that hospital has no idea what happened over here in Tennessee.
Yeah.
That makes no sense whatsoever.
Right. And it's just because, if you think about how technology companies make their money, they go in and they sell, you're a special snowflake. Let me customize this system. And just from sort of a regulatory and government standards, there's not a whole lot of standards and requirements of that data to be connected about you. But if you could be empowered to own that for yourself, and then you could share it with the different healthcare providers that you go to, we could change that. And we could really focus on medical breakthroughs where we are, it's $5 to $10 billion to bring a new drug to market. And a lot of that is just the administrative burden. So it's crazy. With a B.
Good golly, Miss.
Well, that's
and it takes 10
that's
plus
why
years.
I haven't dabbled in it.
Right.
I mean, that right there.
Yeah.
We bring that down to 3 to 4 billion, then let's play ball.
Yeah.
That's a doable number.
Yeah.
That's more manageable for me.
That's incredible. That's absolutely incredible.
It's just fun, kind of, and to your earlier point, like ridiculous problem solving. Like I think about how, like, I just got a text about renting a car in Florida and driving through the toll booth, and they know how to find me and charge me. Mm-hmm. Or like you think about just digital marketing, like we're so advanced in all these ways and our healthcare is so far behind. So that's what I
just
focus
to
on.
go on another tangent here. This is not going to be a tangent. I just want to say,
though. Toll booth tangent?
The toll booth text tangent.
Oh, wow.
They're scams.
I know. A lot of it is scams,
too. It's a scam.
I know. A lot of it is scams,
I get those texts all the time.
Yeah.
I'm not kidding. I don't think Annie and I can go back to Italy. Because when we were there 15 years ago, somehow they sent us, from the Italian government, sent us like 6 letters that were like, "You need to pay us this money." And we were like, when was that? And we asked friends, like, no, this was legit. But they were like, it
was legit.
It was so, but I was like, how do we get here, John? Should we pray?
Anyway, the book is Delight in Your Hue. It's out.
Yes.
Pick it up. I mean, that is why we're here, to talk about Bree's new book. And I want to say, first off, I can't say first off at this point.
Yeah, it's 30th off.
30th off. The thing that I'm most excited about with the book is that this is so out of left field. Like, this is not, as we've been stating, like, you have a real big girl job.
Jeez,
Thank
John,
you for that.
please. Sorry. Can we just, speaking of, I have to address this, just what's happening in your chair right now. John is sitting, Bree and I are just kind of normally clothed. Bree is actually she's shed a coat.
Yeah.
Both her and John's coats are sitting on John's lap because he's cold.
That's right.
It's a fun image.
This is the new version of manliness. The woman takes her coat off for the man, and we talk about the big girl
As
job.
This is
say-
2025 masculinity.
That's right.
I get
You get
when
cold.
my body gets cold to a certain point, I just can't warm it up anymore.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Keep going.
what was I saying?
Big girl
Dave?
pants.
Big girl job.
Big girl
Right.
job.
You have a high responsibility. Why don't we take a break? You have a high responsibility. Big girl. High
Maybe one of my
responsibility big
favorite
girl.
first 10 minutes of the episode of all time. Oh my gosh.
Hang on a minute. Maybe I'm getting too warm.
You
Hang on.
know what I just thought about is both of your girls are sitting in their school classes right now, and they had a feeling of dread wash over their bodies. That they were like, "Oh my gosh, my dad. That is my dad. He's supposed to take care
What's
of
my dad doing? Is he at the helm? Where's mom? You have
Here we
a
go.
high responsibility
There it is.
job, high stress. You know, you're working a lot, and then you already get up regularly at 4 in the freaking morning to just get a jump on the day, start working before the kids get up, and you do all the kid stuff, and then you're back to work and all that kind of stuff. And you somehow found the time and the energy to write a children's book. And you've been working on it for a long time. It's out. It's awesome. The illustrations
Thank
are beautiful. Who's the illustrator? that you
I
got?
used an illustrator, Cha is her name.
Cha.
She's from the Philippines. Yeah, Cha
wow.
Consul. Yeah.
It's great. I love the book. I love the message. And I know it was inspired in part by Boaz, your son, who was just the best, who you guys adopted. So let's start there.
Okay.
I'd love to, and I'll say the whole adoption process, walking alongside you guys through that whole process was such an eye-opening experience for me. So to the extent that you're comfortable talking about it,
Sure.
can you kind of walk us through what that was like? How did it start? The different ups and downs and all that kind of
Yeah,
stuff.
sure. I mean, it was something I knew I wanted to do, probably back in high school. Just had this feeling, this desire for adoption, and seeing friends that were adopted and just hearing families that were going through the adoption process. And so it was kind of always in the back of my mind. But once we had our 2 biological kids, it really became clear, like, we have a missing child. And
Wow.
I don't know how to describe, I mean, again, I want to also state for the listeners, like, every adoption story is so different. So this is just one story of many. And I think people do it and feel called to do it for different reasons.
Can
but
I ask something really quickly?
Sure.
When you and Buddy started dating, or engaged, early marriage, was that something y'all talked about? Did you tell him
a
that?
little bit, yeah. And I think it wasn't something that, now you guys know Buddy, we're very different. He very much lives in the moment. He's Enneagram 7, fun. And so as much as I think he was really thinking about the future of our kids, he always knew he wanted to have kids and multiple kids. And it's always been something that's been important to him. But I think adoption was something that was okay, yeah, we'll visit that, And then when it came time to actually really visit the conversation, it was almost it's similar truly in a bigger, but similar to how I felt about this book. It was something that I could not get out of my mind.
Wow.
And so, going through that process was eye-opening for us too. And, you don't realize how messy it is. And really also how when you're the adoptive family, you have no really control, of course, but you're also taking on a lot of risk. And about 30% of adoption cases in our country fail.
Good night.
And a lot of that is because of fraud. Certainly some of that is because the birth mother changes her mind, which she absolutely should have the opportunity to do.
So what is, when you say fraud, what does that mean?
Yeah, well, we actually experienced that in our first go round. It means that you, come into an agreement and a legal agreement where there is, the plan to have commitment to adopt someone's child. And the birth mom really does have, full control of that. I mean, it was so weird. Like, we created a PDF of our family pictures. How do we want to basically present ourselves in like a booklet to these birth moms, and they select someone, which is just seems crazy. Like, how do you do that process well? Certainly it's not through a PDF, but once you commit to that, very commonly these birth mothers, they're really in a bad place in life. And so you're generally paying for their living expenses. You're paying to support if they have an existing family, just keeping a roof over everyone's head, making sure they're going to medical visits, that type of thing. And if they change their mind, or maybe in some cases, if they actually never planned to adopt the child out, once the child is born, if they don't go through with the adoption, you're out that money.
And there's no, wow, jeez.
And so, and there's also cases in our country where, going back to like not having good processes and technology in place for things, they could be even working with multiple adoption agencies at one time, getting expenses covered. So,
and this could have like happened in the past, but you wouldn't have known that.
Yes.
When you know
right.
what would,
exactly.
What would be so tricky about that? It's sort of, stay with me, this is a weird example, but I think it's sort of true. It's like, what would be so hard about that is, do you really want to like come down on this person who's probably
100%.
already in a really bad way?
Yes.
I mean, like, so what I was going to say is, when my car got stolen, and I remember having, again, very different, but sort of a similar feel conversation with an officer.
But you would always talk about your fourth child
as my car. And that's really where I'm trying to go with this.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to follow. No.
It cost me a lot more than my children, honestly. All the things that were wrong with it. But the officer said, like, hey, you can
like press charges.
Press charges.
Like
and I was like, okay, tell me. And I think it was a young kid. And I was like, walk me through what that would look like. And he was like, well, look like this, you do this. And I said, what do most people do? He's like, they just don't, because, again, it's a 14-year-old kid. And,
right.
And you have every right to. But I mean, is that, so it's that tricky space of, you could probably go hire somebody,
sure.
but like, It
was tricky. And so our first match, that happened, and the birth mother wasn't honest with us. The child was born, and the social worker came in. We went out in person to another state, met the birth mother and the birth father as well.
After months and months of correspondence and
FaceTiming and all these things,
Yeah.
And then come to find out, she was trying to, make it appear that she was still pregnant to the social worker and try to continue to collect, some coverage for some of her expenses. And ultimately we found out that, the baby was born and it wasn't going to happen. And possibly that was not the plan, So, but to your point, it really opened our eyes up to so many people even just in our country, are experiencing life a very different way than we are. And you have to ask yourself, when you're trying to do that to survive, what brokenness are you holding, and what is your life like? I mean, that's just in a way, we were just grateful that we didn't have to understand life in that way,
Yeah.
So that was our initial experience. But then of course, that was not our child.
Yeah.
So you go through that feeling even more. I do have people say to me a lot with good intention, like, oh, that's nice. It must be easier to adopt than be pregnant. And I've, done both. And honestly, the adoption process, you have absolutely no control at all. I wish I could have, been involved in what that baby was, what the birth mom was eating, and, substances, hoping there's no substances or anything like that the baby is experiencing. But we ultimately did get matched with our son. And that was difficult too, because that birth mother didn't want to communicate with us really or see us. And I just met her at the birth. And that was one of the most memorable, hardest, beautiful times to come in and see somebody that, just gave birth to a child and is going to get in an Uber and not go home without that child.
Jeez Louise.
And you're going to take it. And it's just hard to think about, how is this right? There certainly can't be God's plan. Not his intention for families to, go through things like this, but also in his sovereignty, that he's working all things for good. That's how we found our son. So it is a messy story for sure.
John, okay, so first, a sobering stat.
Okay, let's start there.
Okay.
Hit me with it.
Did you know that over 140,000 family farms, 140,000.
That's a lot.
Family farms in the U.S. have closed down since 2017.
What?
Yeah.
No, I did not know that.
Yeah, it's heavy.
Listen, this spring, Dave, we need to change that.
Oh,
okay?
yes.
It's not to bring it around with a bad dad joke. It's time to spring into action and put American farms first, because nothing beats American quality. I've said it a million times.
You have. Yeah, this is 1,000,001. That's why we chose GoodRanchers.com, the brand that stands for integrity, tradition, and 100% American-raised meat.
When you buy from Good Ranchers, you're not just getting better meat.
Nope.
You're supporting the livelihoods of American farmers, ranchers, and families who have been feeding this country for generations.
Everyone has the power to spring into action and make a real difference in the lives of American farmers and ranchers. By subscribing to Good Ranchers, you can do just that.
To invest in American farms, support our veterans, and get high-quality meat that upholds the values of tradition, visit GoodRanchers.com and use our code DADVILLE to claim your free meat and $25 off.
They just love us so
They're
much,
just
even
giving.
in this hard
Giving.
time. Let's support what makes this country great. American values, American farmers, and American quality. Free bacon. It's just, even me saying that, I'm like, how is this true, John? Have they been in my dreams? Get out of my dreams and get into my car, Good Ranchers. Free bacon, ground beef, bacon, seed oil-free chicken nuggets. I said bacon twice because guess what, John?
Might as well. Throw it in there.
Or salmon in every order for a year. $25 off with the code DADVILLE.
Good Ranchers. American meat delivered.
I don't really know.
And none of us spoke English.
Oh my gosh, I love my first trip to Disney World. I remember
know.
it so well.
Speaking of Disney World, hey, Dave.
Yeah.
Hair thinning is a very common, very frustrating problem that many men deal with in and outside of Disney World.
Yeah.
Okay, from stress and nutrition to hormones to lifestyle, so many internal factors affect what you see on the outside. Luckily, Nutrafol is here to help.
Physician formulated with 100% drug-free ingredients. I'm so excited I'm able to power through, John. Nutrafol supports healthy growth from within by targeting key root causes of thinning: stress, hormones, aging, nutrition, lifestyle, and metabolism through whole body health.
That's right, Dave. Nutrafol is the #1 dermatologist-recommended hair growth supplement with over 1 million, you heard me, 1 million people seeing thicker, stronger, faster-growing hair with less shedding.
Building a hair growth routine is simple. Purchase online, no prescription required. Automated deliveries and free shipping keep you on track. Plus, with a Nutrafol subscription, you can save up to 20%. You'll have access to free naturopathic doctor consults, and a Headspace meditation membership is included.
Start your hair growth journey with Nutrafol. Start it right now. For a limited time, Nutrafol is offering our listeners $10 off your first month subscription and free shipping when you go to Nutrafol.com and enter the promo code DADVILLE.
They give and give, John. Find out why over 4,500 healthcare professionals and stylists recommend Nutrafol for healthier hair. Nutrafol.com. Spell it for him, John.
It's Nutrafol.com.
That's right. What's the promo code?
It's Dadville.
Yeah.
Not It's Dadville, just Dadville.
Just Dadville.
Okay? That's Nutrafol.com, promo code Dadville.
Well, just can you imagine? I mean, I'm a man, so I can't imagine this at all in reality, but just, you know, that your body as a woman thinks something that is no longer true.
Yeah.
And it has to, you know, over whatever that takes, a couple of weeks or whatever, shut down those things you feel, all that you went through. I mean, it's just, that would be so intense.
Absolutely.
Because it's not like you can, you know, you could try to cut your brain off to it, but your body's still like, hey,
Yeah.
like where's this baby? You know, I'm ready to.
Yeah.
Yeesh.
It's almost like in every angle. From one angle, it's like little Boaz. He's just the best. He's part of your family. It's a great outcome. But to your point, this isn't like the number one best situation.
No.
Which is it's a tricky. I don't even know what the word is. It's just like a weird reality.
Sure.
That this, is maybe not the top situation. His birth mom is probably not in the best life situation, you know, and finds herself wanting to give Boaz up for adoption.
Yeah.
Which can have this great outcome because he's in this great family now. But even the very beginning of the process where you're putting together a packet and you're like, here we are as kind of a product. And then the adoption agency is saying to you, what kind of baby do you want?
Yeah.
And you're like,
so strange.
Such an odd situation.
Yeah. It's definitely a great example of just the brokenness of the world.
Yeah.
So you have Boaz, who, by the way, does he have cornrows now?
He does.
I mean,
Currently,
I saw
yes.
a picture. He looks so cute.
His hair is the best.
At what point, there's a million things I want to talk about with that, and just having a child from a different, ethnicity as your child, which is like a million different things we're going to talk about. But with the book, when is the point you're like, I got to write this book?
Yeah. It sort of manifested itself after so many conversations with people, white families, where we became a safe, I think, place for them to ask questions.
Oh, wow.
And also for us, really starting to take on this, we saw the need clearly to advocate for him, to advocate for the Black community, to give him representation, to really start to decenter ourselves, change our world. And as that happened, we started recognizing we had so much to learn. And I think that journey will continue forever, until we get to heaven. But as people saw that happening in our lives, they started coming up to us and asking a lot of questions.
Wow.
And I felt like there were some core truths that I was never taught, that I was missing, that kind of shaped the way that I viewed people of color. And I really wanted to do something about that for my kids and for, the generations that are coming up today, to say, I feel like I lost out on an opportunity to really see the beauty of color as it was created to be. And that's where the plan for the book came.
Wow. It's so, I feel like you said, the way that you guys use colors throughout the book is so helpful to even me. It was just so fun seeing oh my gosh, it's such a fun read. And I think that's such a good job of enunciating what you're saying throughout that. Was it something as you're writing it? I'm curious, did the kids vet it? Were you kind of testing?
Yeah, I was testing it on kids. I'm really fortunate to have access to a lot of Black people that this is their thing. They are, I have pastors in my church that, they've written books, they've shepherded churches specifically through racial trauma and things of that nature. And so I had their eyes on the book pretty early, because the one thing that I didn't want to do, and the one thing that I worry about with my son, with Boaz, is I don't want him to have this moment, and I certainly didn't want any child to have that moment with this book, when they were opening it and thinking, people think I'm other in any kind of negative way.
Oh, that's
so
really
it's like
good.
this delicate dance of you want to take a book and really open children's eyes up to the value and the beauty of color, but in a way where, kids see that color has to be seen, but it's not about hierarchy ever.
Right.
And so that was something that I wanted experts looking at that I trusted. And so their eyes were on it, and certainly the kids too, just to make sure that could I keep them engaged in it all the way through.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I love that this, like I said, I love the message of the book in the way, like Amy, my wife, always, one of the reasons why she loves going to big cities. I mean, she loves traveling in general, but like going to like New York City or something like that. It's so the diversity in the city. She's like, this is what heaven's going to be like. This is one of the reasons why I love being in a diverse.
I hope a little cleaner than New York, but I know what she's saying.
Well, I don't know. Okay. A lot of people are
That's
up there
fair.
probably.
That's fair. I don't know the theology.
So it's going to get
on
messy.
But sure.
It's going to get dirty. And we're going to, I mean, who's going to clean? I don't want to clean in heaven. So you kind of get into the logistics of it. But that's one of the things that she, which I love, that just that image. I love the way that she's viewing it, and I feel like the book is that. It's like all hues, all pigmentation, all colors. We were all created in God's image.
Yes,
and let's celebrate all that. And I feel like in the when we were all growing up in maybe the 90s or whatever. I mean, probably the most public example of this mindset was when Tom Cruise and Katie, is it Katie Holmes?
Yep.
Her name? When they were together and they adopted, and they did that interview with Oprah, and they were like, well, we don't see color. And Oprah was like, well, your kid's going to see color.
That's right.
Just FYI.
Yeah, just
and
FYI.
And we do, actually. I'll see it.
We definitely do. And it's a totally... I think in its healthiest form, it's well-intended.
Yes.
You know, it reminds me of a friend of mine who I'm really close with who was adopted. He's white and his adopted family is white. But they had that mindset growing up. When he was growing up, it was never, ever brought up that he was adopted, because the mentality was he is just as much a part of this family as the other kids who are the biological kids, which is a beautiful thing. I mean, that's a beautiful intent and a beautiful mindset. But for him, he's like, all the while, his whole life, he's like, well, I know I'm adopted.
Yeah.
And no one ever talks about it. So that must be something that we don't like. That's not good that I'm adopted. That's something that we're trying to forget about. We're trying to sweep it under the rug kind of a thing. And so his whole childhood, his whole adolescence, all this kind of stuff. And now he's into adulthood, and he's dealing with sort of this shame that he's taken on, this like low level, chronic, passive, unspoken shame that like, well, there's something kind of from the get was kind of wrong with me. And we try to ignore it. So all that to say, I love these kinds of messages that are out there that are like, let's not ignore this, guys. That's not an option.
You know what I do?
Celebrate.
You know what I do think is really hard about that, though, and I'm not justifying whatever, but as a parent, I think something that's always so hard to navigate is how much information to give your kids at any point. You know, it's that really. So I could see how, and I mean, I feel like, and I have a very small sample size. My best friend growing up was adopted, but I feel like that was kind of the thing then. It was sort of like you kind of knew, or maybe but it was not like you wouldn't walk in their house and it would come up and be really normal.
Right.
Oh, well, whatever,
Yeah.
And so I do think that was a little bit of what was happening then from my perspective and the couple of adopted friends I had. But like you kind of get as a parent where it's like, I think about this a lot with our three, like how much do you want to plant something in their brain that either doesn't need to be there or could take a hard left turn, or so it's not justifying it. But I think as a parent, that's it's a tricky plight, I would imagine, because you don't want to sort of spark something before it's time, but you don't want to, both sides.
Yeah.
So it would be hard, it'd be a tricky thing. Whereas, a weird sort of gift of y'all's situation is there's no getting around it. No, that's right there.
Right.
There's no,
because he's a different race.
That's exactly right.
That's right. And I, tying that same kind of mindset to this idea, John, that you were just talking about, of we don't see color. It really took people of color educating me on the fact that there does become a negative connotation, and, it can be anti-Black when you don't ever address that people are Black, people are white. You have to equally address color.
Yeah.
And, that was something that was such an unlock for me when we first adopted Boaz, really understanding that the world is very white, lens of my world. And I'll give a quick example of like taking my son to Target and wanting to get him something for Christmas and really feeling like, well, I want to find a nutcracker or a Santa Claus, an elf, something where he feels represented in our house for Christmas. And I couldn't find anything. And I just went to my car and cried and called my friend that was Black and said, I want to just apologize because I know this is what you feel about Christmas. You don't feel like Christmas is for you. And then that leads into the Christmas movies, and everything. And just thinking, wow. So what happens when we're not addressing color is that we lean and center on whiteness, actually.
Yeah. Which if you're white, like you're saying, in that moment, it took adopting a Black son,
right,
and then wanting him to feel represented at the Christmas season for you to realize, oh, wait a minute, there are no options for that. There are no Black Santas.
Right.
That wasn't something that you probably noticed
never
before
thought
then.
about that before. I never had to, right?
Yeah.
And so that was a big part of recognizing that color is so intentional to reflect such a complex and beautiful image of God. It was necessary, and thinking that if we don't celebrate that you bear that image in your colors, and together we can more fully represent the image of God, that's a miss, you know? And if we can plant that seed early, like Dave, going back to you saying like, well, the timing of this is so tricky. There's a lot of research that shows, and even Boaz, before he was walking, that kids recognize their skin color. They recognize they recognize other babies that are colored like them. Boaz would put his arm up to things that were brown in our house, graham crackers, things like that, and smile because he recognized we weren't the same color. And so from the very beginning, before he was talking, I was celebrating his color because I had people in my life of color saying this is really important to do. And it's really important, that we recognize everyone's color. And that has been something that I'm really excited to hopefully share and plant seeds with other parents and other children earlier on.
Well, I've heard you talk about this, and I think it's profound, is like, as you kind of alluded to earlier, is that it was sort of like the realizations got bigger and faster. Because, to your point, you were like, okay, we'll bring him home and we'll make sure we have some things in the room to sort of like, oh boy, there's a lot to think about.
There is.
In not just representation, but your community and having him being around people that are also Black and that being a normal part, it's a complete reconstruction as opposed to a little kitchen demo.
Right. It's not like, okay, I knew and thinking about this, we're going to have dolls and we're going to have paintings and books and, I'm going to have to learn more about Black history. But what I didn't know at the beginning, and I'm so glad that people pushed me to do this, is he needs to be seeing Black people in our home. He needs to be seeing me taking direction from people that are Black. I need to be hugging them. I need to be in relationship. And that has been, a game changer for us. And it's changed the way our whole family operates. And it's helped me see Jesus more fully. It's been a beautiful part of what the adoption has pushed us to do. And I'm, in some ways, ashamed to say I wish that was on my heart just because it was. But it did take the adoption to show us that. And so, it's a continued journey of now, as we're graduating to new kind of levels of knowledge, even being in rooms, I pick up on microaggressions and things that I never did before that I see are going over everyone else's head. We were at a school, we go to 3 different schools. So we were at one of our schools and someone was going over some of the data of the kids' testing results and saying well, we didn't rank top, but our demographics, it's because our demographics are different. than those other schools. And I'm looking at the people of the color in the room and thinking, wow,
Yeah,
that was just said.
What was really just said there?
That,
like, what did
that
they
was
hear?
just said.
Yeah.
And just, I am now picking up on stuff like that constantly.
Yeah.
And I remember before adopting Boaz, one of the safe places where I would ask for advice was like in an Uber from a driver that didn't know me, because I knew they could give me they'd just tell it to me straight.
Really?
Yes. And I remember this beautiful Black woman telling me, if you do this right, you're going to get angry and you're going to understand anger in a different way. And I remember thinking,
yeah,
okay, I'm all right. Well, I'm not scared of that. I'm up for that. And like now really understanding what she meant.
Jeez, what a profound thing to say.
Yeah. It was a really good warning for me. And
I'm
something
sure she's probably looking at you like, oh, honey.
Exactly.
Just like
she
buckle.
is.
You want to jump in here?
That's right.
You want to? I think that ever since probably 2020, and like you're saying, Bree, I mean, these are things that you wish you would have just had on your heart beforehand.
Yes, so
and
bad.
I think that you probably did to as much of an extent as you could at that time. But I just think whoever is the, sort of, for lack of a better way to say it, whoever is the group that's kind of in power, and that sounds like maybe a dramatic way to say it, probably for all the people who are in power. For all the people who are listening are no, that's right. That's right. But all the people who are, if you are, let's just say, if you're a straight white guy in America,
shout out,
you are represented. So when someone from a different ethnicity, a different group, women, whoever, talk about representation, I can empathize. This is my most generous sort of response to some straight white guy being like, hey guys, can we just calm down here? Because you just can't, I just don't think that you can really experience like what your Uber driver was alluding to on the other side of that. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so it's hard to articulate how much my eyes were just cracked open. And I think for a lot of us, like in 2020, when George Floyd was murdered, I think that really opened up a lot of us started having conversations with our Black friends and with our Asian friends and with, and you start seeing the world slightly, as much as you can on the side. You're like, that's your day-to-day life. Like when Dave, you talked about a friend of yours who, like, a Black friend of yours, that every time he walks into the room, he scans the room. Every single time. This is muscle memory for him. He scans the room. See any other Black people in this room? And
when we had Isaac on, did he tell you, this is one of my favorite stories. Our buddy Isaac Kirk, friend of the pod, one of my best friends, lived in Santa Barbara. He's an actor, and he went to go see a Will Smith screening. I love when he tells his story. You remember the story?
Yeah.
And he said it's Santa Monica, Santa Barbara. So it's like it's a lot of white people.
Yeah.
And he said, I noticed I was the only Black guy in the crowd, and he said, I watched Will do it. He said, Will Smith walks in, he scans the crowd, he makes eyes with me, and he gives me a nod, and I give him a nod. And it was like, kind of like, hey, if it goes down, I got you. And I just thought, Will Smith, one of the biggest stars in the world. Forget, ethnicity, one of the biggest stars. But still, and so I think what's one of the things that's always so tricky to me about this space, and there's a million of them, and as John just said, I'm speaking as a straight white guy, so I'm very well represented. There's no problem. But it does feel like when you start having those conversations, and you're so different than we are because you're living this every second of your life, But it's really hard not. It's hard. It's like it's hard to go backwards. It's hard not to unsee when you have friends or family members that are really honest with you and tell you these things. I feel like I was almost annoying for a while about it because somebody would be like, somebody'd say something and be like, oh, let me guess, it was all white people. And they're kind of like, yeah, why are you acting like this? And I couldn't help it because I just felt like, gosh, just, like Band-Aids. Do you want to have your mind blown that there weren't like when did they actually start making like
Just
That's
recently.
a
Just
great
recently.
example.
that is a needle in a haystack
Yeah.
of
Yeah, yeah,
examples
yeah.
of
Yeah.
that was a weird. Let's go with it. Let's don't
Sure.
push back on that.
Let's not push
but
back.
it's one of a billion examples
Right.
of ways that people of different ethnicities just have
Every
and that's
day.
their everyday. Like, oh, I'm going to go get a
Every day.
Band-Aid and it's going to look really weird on my dark skin, this white person's Band-Aid. Oh my gosh. It's you forget how ticklish you are sometimes.
I never forget.
You don't.
That's the funny thing.
It is funny. John,
Yeah.
speaking of funny things, one of my favorite online stores the
Oh,
other
tell
day
me. Tell
went
me.
right out of business.
No.
Yes. Right out of business.
Dang.
They had awesome stuff. I don't understand it. I don't know what happened.
Okay, well, here
I've
are
been
my
thinking
thoughts,
about this.
David.
Okay.
How was the quality of their transactions, like when you would purchase something online?
Oh,
What was the read
gosh.
on that?
Kind of like me and my first dance. It was clunky.
A little clunky. You hear that, Dave?
Whoa.
Dave, I bet they didn't use Shopify. Okay,
Yeah.
It's often the business behind the business making selling simple, and for millions of businesses, that business is Shopify.
I bet you're right, John. I don't say that a lot,
of
but
course
in this
I'm right.
scenario, you are. Nobody does selling better than Shopify, home of the #1 checkout on the planet. On Earth. So if you're
All the
into growing
planets.
business, your commerce platform better be ready to sell whenever your customers are. What are they doing?
They're scrolling or they're strolling.
That's right. On the web, in your store, in their feed, and everywhere in between.
Upgrade your business and get the same checkout Cotopaxi uses.
That's right.
That's right. You can have the same one.
That's
Sign up for your $1 per month trial period. You thought I that's a typo. It's not. $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/Dadville,
That's right.
all lowercase.
Go to shopify.com/Dadville to upgrade your selling today.
Shopify.com/Dadville.
Give that sound.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile with a message for everyone paying big wireless way too much. Please, for the love of everything good in this world, stop. With Mint, you can get premium wireless for just $15 a month. Of course, if you enjoy overpaying, no judgments, but that's weird. Okay, one judgment. Anyway, give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. Intro rate first 3 months only. Then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See full terms at mintmobile.com.
I'm trying to have the most benevolent, generous response to someone being like, guys, that seems petty. Like,
Yeah.
you just don't understand what like someone of color would be like. We've got a million more things on this list.
That's
bro.
a really gentle
Can
one.
we go through the list here? Like, let's look
Yeah.
at just representation in general.
Yeah.
You know, so
yeah.
you can either you can not believe the people of color or the people in different groups who are telling you what their day-to-day experience is like. I don't know what your options are other than that. You
Yeah.
can just choose to
Right.
not believe them
Yeah.
just because you don't experience that
Which
stuff.
you know what's crazy is you can actually live a whole life that way. If
Right.
if you
So
don't
true.
have friends that are, you know,
Or if you
different-
don't listen.
or if you don't listen,
Yeah.
you can and you can do it. Like it is extremely doable.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
you can just. But I think the minute that you're blessed with friends that are different or a family member, or whatever,
Yeah.
it is. It's and I mean I'm on the fringes of that. I'm not even someone who's doing that at a clip that you are, Bree. But like, it really is the Matrix. It's like once you swallow that pill, it is really hard to unsee. I mean, even still to this day, if I watch a movie, if I watch a TV show, if a new TV show is coming out, it's one of the first things I do is I'm like, is it all white people? Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Oh, it's not. Okay. It's like all black cast. That's cool. But, or it's like, oh, it's got both. It's got, but it's just really, I don't know. It's like once you sort of see these things and then it really starts to get like, I've found that every now and then, not all the time, but I'll walk into a restaurant and I'll do that. I'll just be like, I wonder if there's any
Sure.
black people. Oh, look. Okay. Annie, we were at Covenant where we go to church the other day and I know my wife so well. It's like, there's like, I don't know. I think Isaac may be the only black guy that goes to church there, which is a real bummer for us. But this couple came in, a mixed race couple. And I was like, Annie Barnes is going to sprint. She's going to sprint. And sure enough, I got caught in a conversation because I was going to and walk out in the lobby and she has got him. She's like, you just thank you for coming. Like, we get so excited when people of different colors come to this church. Like, we're here to help. And I've laughed because I was like, she's taking the pill too, because it's just so hard that once you interact with that world, not to feel like, gosh, all I can see now is sort of this like inefficiency of representation or thoughtfulness or whatever. That again, your view for the rest of your life has him in it.
Right.
And so everything that you're seeing is informed by a son who's a different color than you are and has a wildly different experience than you.
And I will say, just going back to the story you just shared about Annie, I've the more that we really desire having more diversity in our life, the more and more we realize too, it's just something that it's so challenging because Satan has been so successful with using this against us. And it is so deep, and it is so, the systems, all the things just don't want us to live in community together. And I really do believe because in community with diverse people, we experience Jesus more fully.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
And so it is something that, I want to challenge people listening to, like, fight for it. It is worth it, but it does take time. And it takes, and I think that's okay. That's what I realized is, like, I wanted to just jump in and how do I diversify everybody around me, and I really had to I had to be patient, and it is
and
worth
humble.
Yeah. And very humble and really listening. And sometimes I had to understand some of my own biases that I didn't even know were there.
Yeah.
Which I think is a real key part of it. Like, I think it takes maybe recognizing, as much as I wish that this weren't true, if I really want to make some progress in this, in the way I see the world, and if I really want to open my eyes and be sensitive to hearing other people's experiences, I have to recognize that I have these biases within me.
Yes. And then I think the next step is you start to challenge things, and that's been, I like, I think it's Jamar Tisby that says, like, justice takes sides. And that is where you start to realize, like, now in order to really be able to, do life with people of color and we need to challenge things with them. You were just saying, Dave, earlier, like, they're exhausted of doing this work. And, you really need to turn into an advocate. And that has been something that has really just been one of the key things that we are focused on as a family now is, like, how do we get our kids involved in service? How do we go to more Juneteenth celebrations? Why are we so focused on 4th of July? And not everybody's free, but we are not going to, we're not elevating Juneteenth. Like, we're really, and then telling our friends, like, what are you doing for Juneteenth? Let's go. We're, like, really, really helping encourage people to come together. That's been where we've actually felt a shift. And now it's like, okay, now our real people are becoming diverse in our life.
Well, something that I think fascinates me so much, because it's such a big part of this conversation, I think, and I need to admit that we do have a few Black people at Covenant. I got excited because I was like, oh, I forgot a few. But wildly underrepresented, but we're working on it.
Yeah.
But the thing that I think is so tricky about this that I can't imagine walking through as a parent is that you still want to be who you are, right? Like, you actually do a disservice to your different colored friends.
Yeah.
By I think it's a great comedy, but honestly is how I think there's always such a temptation to assimilate, because it feels like I'm like you, and that's the best, because then I show you that this is how much I like you, is I'm just going to be just like you, But I think something that it's a real disservice, because you want to be who you are. I mean, that's what the book is about, right? It's not assimilating into a different culture to show them how much we love them or vice versa. It's going, how do I care about you, stay completely who I am, and love you well and vice versa? Because then it's actually really robust.
Right.
It's a really robust relationship. And I think one of the things that's so hard about that too is understanding that, to your point, John, and I think this doesn't get talked about enough, we're going to have biases that are completely built in. Everybody will. Right? And so I think like the example I always use is like, if I walk into a room and there's, 50 black guys, 50 white guys, I, without knowing it, will walk toward the white guys. Now, that is because that is a known, they're like me, they look like me.
Right. Yeah.
And so part of that is, it's not necessarily that it's bad. It's just, you're going to go to what feels like you.
Yeah.
So that's and that's okay in the moment. Now, hopefully within a few minutes, I'm going to go, like, we all mix and hang. But I think something we got to understand is there's going to be a natural thing that happens that we don't need to get to. Like, that's just how it is, right? If there's a room full of women and men, I'm going to go talk to the men because that's what I am and that's what I feel comfortable with. Now, I don't want to stay talking to the men. Well, I do actually have a wife, but you know what I'm saying. But, there are these things that you have to sort of be okay with to work out of.
Sure.
Because I think what we can do is shame ourselves into oblivion. And that doesn't help anybody.
Yeah. Or we just take all that cultural, and this is something that I wanted to, put in the book, is like, we take that cultural context away and you look at, we should be assimilating to Christ and who he made us to be. And that is, we're going to have different giftings. We're going to have different talents. We're going to have different ways that we've experienced the world. But where I think it's breaking down and why we're not being in diverse communities together is because we have tied that in our flesh to hierarchy.
Yeah, for sure.
And it's not about hierarchy. It is, to your point, it is about celebrating the different ways we were made and our different experiences and the different ways that we are walking out God's plan for our lives and recognizing that is beautiful, but then pushing back against any time that becomes about hierarchy.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah, and it's amazing. Like, if you ever see movies, which I think are just so crazy to watch, is when someone that is black has authority over a white person, is like, there'll be times I'm like, this feels kind of weird. I'm like, why does this feel weird to me? And I'm like, oh yeah, because this is not the narrative of my whole, whether I know it or not, it's like the narrative is this narrative that we've known our whole lives as white people. And so you watch those parts in you and you go,
yeah,
probably need to flag that, or whatever those things that we feel.
That's honest. Yeah, we don't see that represented enough, and there's such a lack of equity. In the Nashville area, white families on average have almost 10 times the amount of wealth as black families. And that's not. I mean, that's just not biblical. If you look at the way that Jesus lived and served, and everybody got the same amount of manna. It wasn't. It's. We really need to help. I love this example that my pastor shared a little while ago with us, and it's just really stuck with me. Sometimes that happens where, what we don't need to have for marginalized people is just sympathy, because that's like you're leaning down, looking at them in the hole, and you're like, that must be hard to be down there. Yeah. We need to have empathy where we crawl down in the hole with them, sit down with them and say, we're coming out together.
Yeah.
And that's where I want to see, that's where I want to push myself. And that's where I want to see, especially as believers, us start to do more of that work hand in hand with marginalized people, because I think it's really comfortable for us to get, we're insular, where we focus so much on, and there's nothing wrong with that. People that, look like us, have experienced the world like us, are in similar economic statuses, like the same things. But I think that we're becoming less like Jesus because of that, because that's not the way he lived.
We had, I over the years at Covenant have led a Sunday school, and one of them, I had a couple of friends come in, a black and a white guy, and just talk about their relationship. And it was really the black pastor was black pastor was one of the, they were both pastors. It was really cool. And they came in a few times, just talked about what it looked like to be in a relationship. And the black pastor told the funniest story about, and he was like, let me tell y'all, this really meant a lot. He's like, the heart of it is really beautiful, but it just will give you guys as a white audience sort of a peek into what it looks like sometimes for me at least. And he said there was a white church that came and helped at their church and just helped clean up, did some things. And he said, one day, like about a week later, there was this big delivery, and it came to the door. It was this huge box at the church, and the pastor was like, "What is this?" And he looked at it. It was an air conditioning unit, and he started laughing because he was like, "They meant so well," but he's like, "What I did is I took it back to Home Depot, and I just got the cash, and we used it for what we actually needed it for."
Oh my gosh!
And I think this is where I'm going with this. I think the other thing that's really interesting about what you're saying too, Bree, is this thing where ministering, to your point about the body of Christ, is such a wonderfully humbling thing if we can approach those moments as we are really here to serve.
Right.
Teach us, help
Right.
us. And one of the first trips that I went on, which was such a beautiful, with Barrett Ward, our dear friend, I learned such a valuable lesson because the guy that was leading our trip sat and talked to some Belmont kids. We were in Kenya. And it was this random thing where they were there, and they're like, "Hey, will you share some thoughts?" And so Larry got up and said, here's what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to come in and sort of like fix all the things and help the things and whatever. He's like, but what we've learned as we've ministered here is that we really are here to serve. So you tell us what we can do and how we can help you, and we will do that. And it's this beautiful. And I think that
Yes.
translates into here too, is this idea of like, and I think that is just so baked into who we are, this kind of come fix it. How do we,
let us come in and tell you what's wrong.
That's right.
Yeah.
And I think
Yes.
there's so much that's so beautiful about the body when we really come in humbly to serve, and how much we can learn in those things. And that's kind of what this pastor said that was really interesting. Is he's like, if they had just said, "How can we help?"
Yeah.
I would have had 100 things. But I think, and he's like, again, it meant the world. I'm not poo-pooing on it. It was a funny moment because they saw what they were like, "Oh, this is how we would handle it. And now I'm just going to handle it."
It's almost, it's like, it's not that pastor saying to the white folks, "You're wrong. You're in the wrong."
Right.
It's like, let me help you better use your kindness.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
In a better way.
Because contextually, it's wildly different. The way that we would handle things, and the way that I just love that image. You put it right back in his car and drove it.
Well, I will say, Bree, I feel like you already know that I admire you so much. What you've done with this book, I'm just so impressed and so proud of my friend Bree for not only the book that you wrote, the message in the book. I hope everybody goes out and gets this book for their kids, for their friends, all that. But your humility and openness throughout the whole thing in the way that you've launched the book. You had this big event here in Nashville, and you invited, you're putting this book out, but you invited 4 other authors, Black authors, who came in, and they were all featured ahead of you, that you went last. It was very, you've stepped into this whole thing with such humility. All the money that you're making from the book, you're not keeping any of it. You're all, I don't know where the money is going.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, we're focused on trying to do events for the community, and we did one for Black History Month to kind of launch the book, like you said, and I wanted to really be able to do that with some of the proceeds of the book, because that's what the book is all about. And in my past, I've always thought I want to be more of a part of a Black History Month event or a Juneteenth event. But how can I do that? I'm a white person, let's state the obvious. But so the fact that some authors were willing to participate in that with me, really the goal was to get kids in front of authors, recognizing the power of books, the written word, and so many of these heroes from Black history, they were authors, and they were inspired by authors. And so we tried to focus on that, and then share. Every author got up and read and shared books. And so that is what this is about, is how do we actually create more spaces and encourage people to live in more diverse communities together.
So something I would love, if you don't mind, for anybody listening, it's like, man, this is like ringing a lot of bells for me. Like they're really feeling moved by this idea or challenged, like, man, I need to get me and potentially my family or spouse or just me, whatever, to engage in this kind of journey. What have been the ways that you and your family have found that has helped y'all?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's really about, we were just saying that, listening first and really being open to know that like you need to feel decentered in these spaces or you're not getting the real messages from people. There is a part of just being uncomfortable that I think is required in order to really understand, a marginalized person's perspective. And if you're not feeling that yet, then you may not be ready to take more steps, which is like really be in community with people. But finding opportunities to serve, there are so many probably in every close to everyone that's listening, close to their community in some place. I guarantee there's a place that you normally don't go to, where there's an opportunity to serve, where, I mean, great to go on a mission trip, but there's probably opportunities in your community. Yeah. And if you enter into that space, just like you were sharing, recognizing this is probably more for you, potentially,
that's a great
than
word.
Someone else.
Yeah, that's a great word.
Get comfortable with being uncomfortable. That's the right place to start. And then surround yourself with a couple of trusted voices where you can build a friendship and you can really learn. That's been key for me and that took time. It wasn't this is not box checking to make yourself feel good. In fact, it is uncomfortable. Yeah. And that's when you know you're doing it right. That's where I would tell you where you should start. And, if you want, the other thing I'll say is we've seen ourselves transition from being in diverse spaces where it felt like we were all there together, but we weren't doing life together, to then recognizing it was easier to do when we were in diverse spaces and the marginalized people, Black people, were the leaders. One quick example I'll give you is like going back to the school thing, transitioning to schools where we had more Black leadership. We were hearing things like, hey, as we fundraise, we know that not everybody in the school has the same amount of relationship capital and access to capital. So we're not going to do this class versus the other because that's not fair. We're going to celebrate together. Wow. It's these little things where you're like, okay, now when someone's in the position of authority, and they can set the standards, it looks different. Yeah. Wow. And that's where we really started to learn and feel like we were just more equipped to serve better.
What a profound, that's just profound, just that. Yeah. Just to go, hey, we've noticed this doesn't go well. Right. For everybody, where I'd be like, no, we got all our friends again.
Right. But they come with that perspective first.
Yeah, that's right.
And
that's
I have to learn how to build it.
Yeah.
So
a learned empathy muscle.
Yeah. It's like put yourself in positions where you have people of color leading you and it's crazy what you're going to learn. Yeah.
You said it so well. And I love this so much. It's the decentering idea. What a beautiful way to put that. Yeah. Challenging.
I have picked that up from other people. Yes.
It's such a succinct way to say that. Just to take your life and sort of push it this way, right? To where you kind of have to see a different
then you start to learn, I think, as you do that more, that you will start to then naturally gravitate towards centering the marginalized person. Like if we're going to lean in any direction, who is potentially being oppressed in this situation or underrepresented, let's make that person the most comfortable. And I really believe that's what Jesus did.
Man, that's so good.
So and just knowing that like those little sort of microaggressions that you now pick up on, you just never would have heard them before, probably. Right. There's just no way to hear the voice. You can't conceptualize yourself into someone else's shoes unless you just hear from them directly. You know what I mean? There's all these experiences that I wouldn't have thought of. Like you're saying, Dave, like such a tiny little thing that the school leadership would say, hey, we're going to kind of change the way that we fundraise here based on our experience. We know what it's like, the day-to-day, situations and a lot of our parents. So we're going to change this. That wouldn't be something that I couldn't have stepped into that school leadership and been like, well, hang on a minute. I've run these scenarios hypothetically, and so I'm going to make this change just intellectually. It doesn't happen that way.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, like one of the first things I'll do when we wrap up here is I'll go to some of my friends that are Black and say, please listen and tell me like, is there anything that I did that was misrepresenting, or what can I learn? And that was something that I did even before coming on, is saying, like, do you think I'm ready for this? Because I want to be that, all I am is like a flow through, almost like a megaphone of, this is what I'm hearing. Yeah. This is what they're experiencing. How do I use the access that I have to then be a good steward of that experience? And,
and just what a beautiful posture to all of us should do this all the time. Just, what can I learn? What can
you learn? Yeah.
Which I remember you texted me something that Cody had said to you.
Yes.
He was one of the authors at the event. But I can't remember exactly what he said.
Oh gosh, neither can I.
He wasn't he saying, like, you should feel a little, if you were
now I remember. Yes.
On the podcast,
he was
speaking.
saying, I told Cody, I'm like, pray for me. I'm going to go on this podcast. I'm nervous about it. He's one of the pastors at my church. He was at our event. He's just really mentored me. A lot of the phrases and things that I'm telling you are from, learning from people like Cody. And he's like, if you went into this not feeling a little bit nervous, I would be worried.
Yeah.
I feel like every time,
if you were just coming in and being like, let me speak for the Black community.
Expert. Yeah, exactly.
Black people, listen up.
That's right.
You know how you guys feel?
Right.
Let me tell you.
That's right.
If you don't know, I'm about to tell you. Let me tell you.
Right.
Yeah,
just like, if you're a woman listening, it's exactly how, like, if a man starts trying to tell you about your experience, and, that doesn't go over well ever.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I mean, that of course, we could just talk about this forever. There's so many, I'm still learning. Like, we just went on a trip last year as a family to New York City, and there were things that Amy was like, you weren't thinking about this. You're a man. You're a 42-year-old. It's just a hunk of muscle.
I was going to say, just walking biceps. Yeah.
Walking biceps with feet. But she was like, there was a situation where
every girl's dream. That's exactly.
Yeah. That's what girls want, right? That's why guys
if Annie does, we're in trouble.
Stop speaking for the women. Yeah.
Where we were, it was late at night, and I just wasn't thinking. I was like, we're going to go down to the subway. We're going to take it back up to our place, And she's like, you're with three women here. Like, you weren't thinking, you're just a guy. If you were by yourself, fine, do whatever you want to do. But, like, we don't feel safe in these certain situations. Like, that's just a small little example of, like, I'm still learning how to be empathetic to different situations.
It's just such a reminder. It's what you said, Bree, so well, is like community, which is what God wants.
Right.
That is what he wants. He wants us to be together. He wants his people to be together, right? Is you just can't understand somebody's plight until they're in your world, until they have a stake in your life, until they have a piece of land that you live on too, that you can go like, oh my gosh. And that could be that, having a daughter that alerts you to, like, or a wife or a friend of a different, it's like we need these people to understand those things, because otherwise it's just really hard that empathy is just tough until you have someone enter your space, like really enter your space.
Yeah.
And so that's a prayer that I know I have, and I would encourage everybody out there to pray, is that as we all grow, to pray for these things, that God will bring these people into our lives so that we do get disrupted, that we get decentered, to really be more like God, to be more like Christ in those ways, and to be humble. So much
humility. All right. So your website is lovemore.com.
Yes, there's some great free resources on there.
Oh, that's awesome.
Too. So,
that's awesome.
I mean, one specifically I want to call out is I have something that you can just download. It's a coloring activity with your kids, and it teaches the history of skin color. And it teaches them a little bit about genetics. It teaches them about melanin. And then it teaches why we all have different levels of melanin because of our ancestors. And then at the end, it gives them a little kindness challenge to really go out and meet people that are new, that they don't know, to learn about holidays they're unfamiliar with, to open doors for people, that type of thing. So
that's great.
I mean, I would love for people to buy the book, but also that's just a great resource that you can get for free to help you with these early conversations, to really pinpoint that skin color is about biology and that it's beautiful. So get that on the website.
Yeah. And the book is Delight in Your Hue. And People can get it on Amazon.
Yes, there's several online distributors. There's, depending on where you're located, may or may not be in the store, but definitely you can get it on Amazon.
Great. Well, thank you for coming on, Bree.
Thank you for having
writing
me.
This book.
Thank you for having me so much.
We'll let you go so you can meet with some high-powered medical
I thought everybody say hot. Walking biceps,
I bet some
medical.
of them are hot.
They probably are.
You know.
They'll appreciate that. I'll start off my next corporate call by saying I'm really excited about everyone's biceps on the Zoom call.
Well, not everybody, but some of you guys.